Welcome everyone to the Success Elevated podcast. As always, I'm your host Hayden Lee, and you'll probably notice that this particular episode, I don't have a guest sitting next to me, or I don't have a guest phoning in via Zoom. What we wanted to do for this episode was we had a lot of awesome people come on the podcast for the first 10 episodes of the Success Elevated podcast, and I wanted to make sure that I went back and highlighted some of my favorite pieces of information and favorite talking points that we had from each of those guests. There was a lot of information and a lot of really good stuff there that I wanted to make sure we didn't miss out on. And there's a lot, and I want to make sure everybody has the opportunity to go back, listen to all of those people. Please check out their other episodes that we have here, but I wanted to make sure that you didn't miss at least a few of these things. It's why I have my notes here. I have a terrible memory. I'm most likely going to forget something, but I have a few things written down for each of the guests that I had on, and wanted to make sure we talked about each of those things. Just to kind of recap what the Success Elevated podcast is. I work for a digital marketing company, and as part of that, we have a front row seat to the success stories of individuals and business owners from all walks of life. And it's been really cool for me to be a part of some of those stories, and really cool for us here at the podcast to be part of those stories. And that's why we started it, was to have an opportunity to bring some of these people in and have a discussion with them about what they do for work, what they do in their personal lives to stay motivated, to want to wake up every day and do what they do. And that's kind of the genesis of the podcast. So over the next 30 minutes or so, I thought I'd take some time to kind of go back through, highlight some of these individuals, or I'm going to highlight all of them, but highlight some of the points that they talked about, and kind of cover it all in a Reader's Digest version. Please still go check out those other episodes. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I think we're just over 700 subscribers. And follow us on any social media platform or any of the major podcast platforms that we're on. We're on Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music, anywhere. Please follow us. Check us out. First episode was Kenyon Martin. Kenyon owns a restoration company here in my hometown. And he's just an awesome guy. Kenyon, I've worked for in the past, been friends with him for a long time. It was really awesome of him to just come on such short notice. We started the podcast without really having an idea of what the episodes were going to look like, what our editing was going to look like. You'll probably notice that the edited version of that on YouTube is quite a bit different. But he was just super willing to come in, have a conversation with us. Kind of the big things that I wanted to highlight. Kenyon, his day looks a lot different now than when he started his restoration company a few years ago. His company's called Restore Right. And when he started Restore Right, he was the boots on the ground guy, going out, managing projects, speaking with customers, all of that stuff. And he still does that a little bit now. But a big thing for him right now is training his team and just helping his team to be the best that they can be. And that's really what takes up his day-to-day life right now, which is really cool that he's invested in the long-term growth of Restore Right in his company. And to do that, he goes to trainings and all sorts of different things to try and better himself as a person, but he's also taking those trainings and actually applying them to his team, which is hugely, hugely important. And just really inspiring what he's done. And he's always trying to be better. He's always reading. He's kind of a weirdo when it comes to that, and he probably will tease me that I called him that, but he seriously is just always reading and looking for, a new book to check out. And he's always got some new podcasts he's listened to. He's always looking for ways to be better, and it's super inspiring. It's the reason why we had him on the podcast, first episode. Second episode was a good friend of mine named Jake Dye. And Jake, I spend a lot of time with Jake. He is the president of our local Chamber of Commerce, and I'm a volunteer member on that Chamber of Commerce as well. Even as president, he's a volunteer member. He doesn't get paid for it. He's also on a half dozen other, it seems like, committees and boards throughout the community, our local community. He has his own insurance business. He helps manage his wife's family's restaurant. He has a hobby farm. Like, he's got all of these things that he's doing. And the big thing that I wanted to take away from his podcast was just like, how does he have time for it all? And he openly admitted, he's like, I don't know if I really have time for it all. I don't know if I really sleep all that much. But he genuinely cares about the people that are around him. It's one of the biggest takeaways that I not only took from the podcast, but just being around Jake all the time. He genuinely cares about his family, his friends, and his community. Jake is somewhat of a transplant to our community. He lived somewhat locally, but has really only been in our town for about the last 8 or 9 years, and has given his heart and soul to the community, which is, it's incredible. And it's just a testament to who he is as a person. And I think it's really been a testament to his success. Is he knows he wants to be successful in, selling insurance or managing the restaurant or whatever. And in order to do that, he's got to be willing to give back to the community. And he's done that 10 times over, which is super inspiring. And one of the big reasons why I enjoy working with Jake, but just, enjoy being around him as an individual, because he genuinely cares. We're planning all sorts of big events for our local community coming up, and different charity things and service projects and all sorts of stuff. And he really cares about the town that I grew up in, and it's cool to see. Episode 3 was one of my bosses. I have a couple of them, but one of my bosses and one of the founding partners and managing partners of Get Found First and Spot On Solutions, Michael Johnson. Michael is another really cool story. Grew up blue collar, grew up on a farm. His dad still raises pigs and cows, and that's what he does, right, for work. Just a really cool story. And the big takeaway from Michael's podcast, if you could, distill it down to one thing, he talked about so many awesome things, and sales, and how he's grown, Get Found First and Spot On Solutions. But his real thing is he wants to reach his potential. And the only person that sets his potential is himself. And he knows that the only way to truly try and reach that potential is getting up every day and working his butt off. And he works incredibly hard. It's cool being around him in the office, because he's just always going, always talking, always working on some new project to grow the company, to bring in more clients, whatever it might be. And that was really, sitting next to him for, 45 minutes. That was really my big takeaway. I work with him on an almost daily basis, but sitting down in a little bit more like intimate one-on-one of a conversation was really cool, because he's just extremely motivated, and he has this desire to reach his potential. It was kind of the big thing we talked about. He wants to reach his potential, and he knows the only way to do that is to work his tail off. And he does that day in, day out. And seeing him work hard makes me want to work harder, and I think it's infectious with the employees in the office. He just wants to work hard, and so the rest of us want to work hard. And it was a cool thing to pull. And he works in a very, marketing is a very white collar industry, and he comes from a very blue collar background, and a lot of us do, growing up where we do here in a rural community. But taking those values of extremely hard work and taking that and applying that to a white collar situation can make you very successful. And Michael's proof of that, for sure. Next episode is another one of my bosses, kind of the two-headed monster that is Michael and Katie. Katie is also one of the managing partners here at Spot On Solutions and Get Found First. And she took a rather large leap when they started their marketing company, her and Michael, way back when, because she was a journalist. Her degree's in journalism, and it was a rather large leap for her to want to do something different. And the big thing that I wrote down on here, well, two things from Katie. And this is evident from just being around here. And the same could go for everybody else, but it was just the thing that I remember from this podcast. she loves her family, as everybody, as I do. She just loves her family, and she, is in charge of, 40 some employees between, the two companies here. But always carves out time for her family. She's got some new grandkids, and she's always looking for ways to try and make sure she's spending the right amount of time with her family and seeing them and getting to know them better, whatever it is. But she really loves her family, as evidence from the story that she told on the podcast, which I'll paraphrase slightly, but it was the first time that her and Michael and the company had been invited to go visit Google's headquarters, which is, what we modeled our new office after, right? Was Google's headquarters. It was the first time they'd been invited there, and she didn't go because it was her daughter's district championship for tennis, and she chose not to go because she knows that family is the most important thing. And you'll want to go and listen to that story. Her episode 4. Just a really, really cool story about her. The other big thing that I took away from her episode was and not even really from the episode, from just being around her in the office, she cares about making her team the best that they can be. She wants to grow this team, and she constantly is talking about, I want this team to be an A team. And she's done that through training. Her, as well as some other individuals in our office, have built this really awesome 90-day training boot camp that has just helped, really fulfill our purpose, which is to elevate people and businesses, to elevate ourselves, right? To help people be better at their job. And it's been through this training process that she's built in association with some other people in the office. But that's her daily focus. She's not as involved in sales as like Michael Johnson is, or Derek Priest, which we also had on the podcast. She's not as involved in sales as they are. Her day-to-day job is she is helping us as employees be better, and helping her team and building systems around helping her team be more effective and be better at elevating people and businesses. It goes back to that same purpose. So those were kind of my big takeaways with Katie. Episode 5 was a little bit different because we had two people on. It was Caden and Julie Bench, and they do something that is a little bit different than what a lot of our audience is used to. They, have an online clothing brand that they've built, and not a clothing brand, but a clothing store that they've built called Untitled Co. And it's really been strictly online that they've built it to this point, but they grew it to a position where they were able to actually get a physical store location, which is really cool, kind of hearing how the steps that it took to get to that place. And, it was interesting. Caden was originally the one that kind of started down this road of doing the clothing thing. And, after a few months was able to get Julie on board with it, and Julie's kind of taken it and ran with it. And she helps with their marketing. And, obviously it's more of a women's clothing store. So she helps, pick out clothing items that are going to work well. And they've built a really strong team between the two of them that has helped build Tilden Co. to where it is. And they're set up, in my opinion, to just explode and blow up and freaking take it to the moon, right? Big thing that I took away from Caden and Julie's story, Caden talked about when he was at Utah State, some of the classes that he talked about finding your purple cow, which is kind of a funny analogy for basically saying, find your niche, find what your company is good at or your business is going to be good at, and lean into it. Find those things that you're good at and just try to optimize those to a point that you can make money doing that. I think a lot of businesses, and I'm guilty of this as well, I've thought about different, businesses that I could start, and you make things too general, you're never going to truly be successful. It's that old adage, jack of all trades, master of none, right? And I think, there's some issues with that phrase, but I think the big picture, right, is that if you try to do all of these different things at once, you're never going to be really successful at what you're trying to do. So yeah, Tilden Co. could offer other types of clothing, and they might at some point if they find that they want to be successful in those other avenues. But right now they've found that their niche is women's clothing, affordable, modest women's clothing. And so they've just leaned into it. And it's paid dividends for them. It's helped them be more successful. And I think that was my real big takeaway from Caden and Julie is they've built a successful business. They've tried different things. That was another thing is they've attempted and failed at several different ways to make this business better. But ultimately, they've found their niche, and as they've leaned into it, they've become more successful, which is, so huge and important. So that was episode 5. Episode 6 was with one of our partners here at Spot On Solutions. Spot On Solutions, our goal is to help do digital marketing and grow businesses that are in the restoration and home service industries. And as part of that, one of our partners is a guy by the name of Eric Sprague. Him and his business partner have developed a company called SuperTech University, and their whole goal is to help train technicians for home service companies to be better technicians, right? And they found that not only should they train on systems and how to build effective systems, but they found that if they train individuals on how to be just better people, it's going to spill over to their work life. So when Eric and his business partner Larry, when they first had their cleaning and restoration company, which is what they owned before they did to SuperTech University, they found that if they did trainings every day on things as simple as eating healthy and getting a good night's sleep, like those types of things were going to spill over and help their techs, their employees be better people. And Eric's story is just so cool, like how he originally partnered up with Larry, and I hope to have them both on the podcast at some point. They're a funny, awesome relationship. And Eric's big thing was there are hundreds and thousands of business coaches for business owners, right? Every entrepreneur at some point is probably going to get some kind of coaching from another entrepreneur, another business coach. But there are almost no business coaches for your employees, for your technicians, the guys and gals that are on the front lines for your business. If you're in the home service industry and you clean carpets, right? If you manage your team, you're not necessarily going out and beating the pavement and knocking doors and talking to your customers. It's your technicians that are going into people's homes to clean their carpets. And if they're not doing a good job, if they're not being effective or efficient in their work, like your business is going to fail. And so Eric decided, hey, I'm training my employees to be better. Let's start this thing where we can train other employees and other companies to also be better. And his focus has always been, let's train technicians and employees to be the best that they can be. Business owners and entrepreneurs, they're going to get coaching. There's all sorts of different coaching for them, but there's not coaching for those individuals that are on the front lines. So that's his niche. Going back to what Caden and Julie said, that's their niche, and they've leaned into it, and it's proven to be super successful. Eric's podcast was awesome. His whole life story of how he got involved is really, really cool. Please go give it a listen. I'm hoping to have Eric and Larry onto the podcast at some point. the both of them together. They have a podcast of their own that is just hilarious and funny. It's called Blue Collar Nation. They just have a great time. They talk about some really cool insights, and it's just fun to listen to. And hoping to have them both back on the podcast. Wow. We're already 5 episodes in, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That was 6. Episode 7. We're moving right along here. Episode 7 was with another local guy here in Southeast Idaho. His name's McKay Kessler, and he owns a local supermarket. And the supermarket has been in business like 90 years, nearly 100 years. They've been in operation, and I wanted to have him on for a couple different things, and he hit on some really cool points. But like, how does a business stay in business that long when it seems that like brick and mortar stores, even in something like the grocery industry, even those are going away, right? Like I can get groceries delivered to my house now. I don't need to go to a grocery store. Like, how does a business like that stay in business? And big thing for him was just these family values that, his great-grandfather started the business, and then his grandfather took it over, and then his dad and his uncles, and then now his fourth generation, and his son, it sounds like his son will probably take it over, be the fifth generation. Like, how does a business stay in business that long? And it's really because of these family values that they've taught. And the big thing that he highlighted was honesty. I don't want to go too far off on a tangent here, but your customers know when you're not being honest. People think they can hide stuff from their customers, but your customers know. If you're not providing an honest service, they're going to figure it out. And ultimately, like, it's up to you to be honest with them. And like, customers are going to be able to figure out eventually, maybe not at first, but they're going to be able to figure out if you're not being honest with them. And he has always preached that. Like, we're going to be honest with our customers. We're not going to price gouge. We're not going to, mess with people's money. They get a lot of people that come into their store that are on, maybe a fixed income, right? So like, you can't price gouge, or like, you're going to lose customers. So he's just, without going too much off on a tangent, he's built this company, and his family's built this business to where it is today because they've been honest with their customers and honest with their employees. It's how they've retained employees for as long as they have, and it's how they've retained customers for as long as they have. Like I said, they've been in business for nearly 90 years. So there's some insights to learn there, and go check out that podcast. But we could all learn something from some of these businesses. Yes, they might be family owned, and it might have just been passed down through family to family, but there's something to be said for an organization that's been in business for that long. Episode 8 was with the high priest of marketing. He loves that nickname, by the way. So if any of the listeners out there want to go tease Derek about this, please do. But Derek Priest was on the podcast for episode 8. He is another one of my bosses. Wears a lot of hats, but the big focus of what he does is sales and growing Spot On Solutions. And a lot of that comes with building relationships with people. And he learned all of that because he originally owned a cleaning and restoration company. And the thing that I wanted to really highlight from his podcast is, it was a phrase that he said that, I've actually had multiple people that have listened to the podcast say, hey, I freaking love that phrase. He told me in the interview, when he owned his cleaning and restoration company, he was not a carpet cleaner. Originally, it was just carpet cleaning. He was not a carpet cleaner. He was a marketer that just happened to clean carpets. And once he figured that out in his brain, he was able to, really start growing the company. And so he started trying all these different marketing tactics, and he found that, building relationships with people was what he was really good at. And to do that, he did things like he built a grill and mounted it to a trailer and drove around to different events so that he could serve pulled pork sandwiches to people. We kind of talked about that for a few minutes on the podcast. Giving out a pulled pork sandwich, however many, maybe it costs 50 cents to make that sandwich. You're not going to be able to necessarily track your ROI, your return on investment for that 50 cents. You give out that pulled pork sandwich, you're not going to be like, okay, I'm going to give this to this person, and then that person's going to call me in a week to come clean their carpets. Like, that's not how it works. But it's so important that you do stuff like that, because in the long term, it's going to help you grow. Because, yeah, that individual might not get their carpets cleaned from you, but they're going to tell their friends or their family or their coworkers. They're going to say, hey, I got a pulled pork sandwich at, a baseball game that I went to last week from a guy that cleans carpets. If you need carpets cleaned, you should go to that guy. Like, that's how stuff like that builds, and it builds up your brand name. People know who you are. They like who you are because you're out in the community, doing stuff like that. Derek had such a cool mindset behind it it's so unique. It's so unique with the mindset, but really the things that he was doing, there's nothing fancy that he was doing. He wasn't doing anything crazy or necessarily super out of the box, but it was this change in mindset of him. It's like, okay, if I want to grow this business, I have to start thinking marketing. all the time. I can't be thinking about carpet cleaning. I've got to be thinking about marketing and how do I grow this thing. And when he changed that mindset, it just really, really paid dividends for him. And eventually it got to the point that, he partnered with a digital marketing company, which was, he partnered with Katie and Michael, and they had such a good thing going that they decided to, hey, why don't we actually take this idea of helping people, helping elevate people and businesses by, through digital marketing, and let's actually build a company that does this specifically for the home service industry and restoration companies, because that was a need that needed to be filled, right? There's a lot of restoration companies, a lot of home service companies out there that are blue collar guys that need help with their marketing, and they found a need there that they were able to really, really help people. And now, nearly a decade later, we're still helping people grow their businesses through digital marketing, and that's really what I do every day is help restoration owners and cleaning company owners and home service company owners grow their business through digital marketing. And through Derek's podcast, it's really changed my mindset. Our purpose here, our mission statement, if you will, at Spot On Solutions at Get Found First, is to elevate people and businesses, right? I've said it friggin' dozen times in the last few minutes. But I've wanted to change my mindset for a long time, that I don't do digital marketing for a living. To go back to what Derek said, I am in the business of elevating people and businesses. And I just happen to do that by helping them build a website and run some ads on the internet. Ultimately, my goal is to help elevate themselves and their businesses. And right now, the best way we've found to do that is through some digital marketing. So it's really helped me kind of change my mindset. And going forward, I want to be better about having that in my brain. Number 9 was a really cool, unique podcast. It was a little outside the box from the rest of these. It's not a business owner. He's not someone that's an entrepreneur necessarily, but it was Jimmy Roberts, who is current chief deputy coroner for Bingham County here in Idaho, and is running again for chief deputy coroner here in Bingham County. But just his whole life story is fascinating, and please go check out his podcast. We fought through some technical difficulties. The audio quality isn't great. You can yell at us in the comments, but his podcast was really, really cool because just his entire life of service that he's given. 30 plus years as a paramedic or an EMT, was in the Navy Reserves as a corpsman, worked on the rubble pile after 9/11. Just a really fascinating guy that is constantly looking for ways to give back to his community. He's just a good dude. I don't know how else to describe him. You need to meet him. When I called him to do the podcast, he said, "Sure, can I come in 30 minutes?" And I was like, "Okay, great." He came in and he had just dropped off a load of feed for his horses at his house, and was in, was in his work clothes and had his work hat on, has this kind of funny cowboy hat. And I kind of teased him about it a little bit, and he's just a good, humble guy that just sincerely has a desire to help people, which is just awesome to be around. It was infectious. At the end of the podcast, you'll probably hear him say, again with the audio quality, but you'll probably hear him say, "We've got a lot of work to do," and he's talking about our local community. But I think it's applicable to everybody. If you want to be a better person, help yourself grow, maybe help your business grow, but really just help yourself grow. Look for ways to help your community, and that's what he's done. It's what he's done his whole life, and I loved a lot of the things that he talked about, but the big thing that I kept referencing back to is he has this mindset, and I've since kind of called it the solution mindset, that when he finds a problem, instead of just passing that problem on to somebody else, it's one thing to identify a problem, but instead of just passing that on to somebody else, he looks for a solution. It happened when he was a kid, when he decided to be an EMT. He saw a problem with, maybe it was the paramedicine in his local area, and decided, instead of just complaining about it, I'm going to go be a part of the solution. And again, it's hugely applicable. It doesn't necessarily you don't have to be a small business owner to have that relate to you. Like, if you find a problem in your personal life, your professional life, your spiritual life, whatever it might be, go find a solution. Don't pass that problem on to somebody else, and don't just bury that problem. Like, go find a solution. And it just was a really, really inspiring conversation with Jimmy. And I again hope to have him on the podcast. I'm sure, he's got 30 plus years of stories that he could tell. So I hope to have him on again. Just a really awesome interview. Last podcast that I want to talk about, episode 10. I'm hope we have 100 more episodes after this, or 1,000 more. But last episode that I want to talk about, episode 10, was with Casey Butler, who's the founder of a YouTube channel called Hushin. Casey, to be honest with you, be honest with the listeners that are still tuned in, if you're still tuned in, that podcast was for me. to be real, it was a selfish podcast, okay? Casey, I've been a huge fan of Casey and the Hushin YouTube channel for a really long time. The content that they make is so just raw and natural. It's not over edited. It's not, he mentioned on the podcast, it's not on like the Sportsman Network or whatever. It's just a really cool, intimate look into his life and his hobby, which happens to be hunting and fishing. And he grew up hunting and fishing. Never really thought, I think, that it would turn into a way for him to support his family, but it has. And originally, when he was thinking about doing this whole YouTube thing, it was really his wife and his brother that kind of helped him take this leap, right? And he was, and he'll openly admit it. He kind of talks about in the podcast, he was a little afraid. He was scared. And I think those feelings are totally natural. I've talked about it in probably multiple podcasts, but getting outside your comfort zone like that should be scary. If it's not scary, then I don't know what to tell you. You might have a screw loose. I don't know what to tell you other than it should be scary. Taking a leap like that, doing something like that should scare you a little bit, and it did for Casey. But he had a support system around him that was like, "Hey, man, we can do this. You can do this," which is hugely important. And I think if you could take away anything from his podcast, that would be one thing, would be have a support system around you that will motivate you to be better and motivate you to take those leaps in some certain instances. I think about my own situation. My degree, I graduated with a degree in mechanical engineering, which for those of you that are listening and paying attention at all, has nothing to do with marketing. But I was presented with this opportunity by Katie to, come and try this out. And, I have a support system at home that was like, go give it a shot. My wife was super supportive of me and was like, Hayden, try this out, see what happens. And, at the end of the day, if it doesn't work out, you go back to being an engineer. Thankfully, it's worked out and it's been awesome. And I've thoroughly enjoyed, helping people grow their businesses. But having a support system like that is hugely important. And Casey hit on that multiple times in the podcast. He also hit on one other thing, which I thought was really cool, that, and a lot of the entrepreneurs that I talk to have done this same thing, but he has surrounded himself with people that are smarter than him. He openly admits that if you surround yourself with people that are smarter than you, you're going to grow. It's going to motivate you to be better. And if it's in a business setting, it's going to help your business be better. He found that there were people around him that were better at video editing. So he's like, okay, go make videos. He found, go edit videos. He found, one of his business partners, Eric Chesser, had the time to consistently make the content. So Eric, go start putting out content. That's going to help the channel grow. He partnered with another business partner, Brian. His other business partner, Brian, was better at the business side of things, right? So he could just kind of focus on creating content. Brian was able to handle a lot of the back end business type things. And so, again, I think if you could take away something from that episode, it would be like, surround yourself with a good support system that helps you want to take those leaps and help support you when you do eventually take a leap. And then also surround yourself with people that are smarter than you, because they're going to only make you better and make, if you own a business, make your business better. And that's kind of the big highlights that I wanted to talk about in this, 11th episode of the Success Elevated podcast, there were so many good insights from these first 10 episodes. And instead of just moving on to the next, which we have a lot more awesome guests lined up, I wanted to make sure we kind of took some time to pause and talk about, okay, these are some awesome insights. Please go check out those other podcasts. Go listen to them. We'll probably tag some of those guests in this episode. Go check out what they're doing, what their businesses are. Go maybe take some insights that maybe they didn't talk about in the podcast, but go learn what you can from these people. They have awesome things that they could teach you just by listening in on the podcast. Subscribe to us, any major podcast platform. Check us out, obviously on YouTube. Our website right now is actually not Success Elevated Podcast. The website is called Success on Point. And we're hoping with the Success on Point website to eventually grow it to a point that we can help anybody grow their business through not only the podcast, but maybe some business consulting as well. So that's the ultimate long-term goal. We hope you enjoyed this episode. I know I just kind of rambled at some different instances, but please check us out, and thanks for tuning in. This has been Success Elevated, making you a little bit better one show at a time. Thanks for joining us. Subscribe on any major podcast platform or check out our website at successonpoint.com.